Hello, there you go. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for being a few minutes late, but we have coffee, so please feel free to grab coffee. A few, housekeeping and rules before we start. The entrance, you have the restrooms out there. Please feel free to use the facility. We have coffee, we have cups and water, and there's also a water fountain next to the restrooms. And even when Daniel already mentioned, just a reminder for everyone, we are on Facebook Live right now. This session is going to be recorded, so if you don't, if you don't want to be part of this because it's been recorded, we just want to give you the heads up in advance. And thank you to Riverwise to partner with us again to broadcast this live on Facebook. The other quick comment is that this very cool looking thing right here in the stool, it's an owl. It's a smart camera that it actually moves towards the person that is speaking. So I hope that we're going to be able to keep the conversation moving fast, but at the same time, let's try to not talk over each other, because if not, the camera is going to go all over the place. And we want to be responsive to our friends, watching on Facebook. So please, if you have any comments, if you have questions, wait for the speaker to finish so you can raise your hand and do it. That way, we keep the camera focused on the speaker. With that said, thank you again for your patience. For those who don't know, my name is Fernando Treviño. I'm the Deputy Secretary for Environmental Justice with DEP, and I'm the person assigned to facilitate the public and the public outreach, but also the community fund for the Shell and DEP consent order and agreement. Before giving some background on this that most of you guys already know, I want to thank to my fellow members of the advisory board, and of course to thank Penn State Beaver. Thank you, Gary, for hosting us. This is great. It's lovely facilities, and thank you again for offering this. Before I start with the background, I wanted to make sure to pass the mic around to my fellow members of the board and see if anyone wants to give welcoming remarks or opening with any comments.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Carrie McDougall. I'm the interim chancellor at the campus, and just so excited to have you here on campus, and so excited to hear about your interests and possibly how you could use these funds, and learning more about your hopes for the future of Beaver County.
Hi, I'm Daniel Rossen-Keen, and I am not a sound or audio technician. And so we're having trouble with the Facebook Live right now. If you happen to be watching online, I'm going to end the feed that we had and start a new one. I'm the executive director of an organization here in Beaver County called Riverwise, and honored to be here tonight.
Thank you, Daniel. Everyone else? Good? Sure. So just a quick 5-minute background on why we are here. And this is just a quick reminder for everyone watching online or for folks in the room. There's no secret that the Shell facility has been very controversial since its planning, creation, and launch. A few months ago, DEP entered into a consent order and agreement that is basically a legal agreement with DEP to impose fines for specific violations of the plant. But as I have mentioned before, the administration believed that the fines were not enough. We wanted to do something for the community as well. As we have discussed before, there's a very specific fine that was imposed for these violations. People believe sometimes that is not enough, other people believe that is enough. But basically, that's the fine that DEP was able to impose with existing regulations, with the powers that gives DEP the existing regulation. But in order to do something for the Beaver County community, we wanted to go beyond what DEP has always done. That it was collecting the fine, making 25% of that fine available to the local municipality if that was the case like this time, and then let the local municipality present a project that would benefit the impacted community. All of that is happening. All of that will happen, and that's how the 4.9 and some change $1 million fine is being used and is being implemented. We're not here because of that. We're not going to talk about the fine. We're not going to talk about how the local municipality is using the portion of the fine, or if they will do it. That's not the purview of this advisory board. This advisory board is here to receive, review, and applications for the other $5 million for the community fund that was created. This is the first time that DEP but negotiates a community fund of this nature, and something that, to be honest, DEP haven't done before is to empower the local community and to empower the local leaders to be part of the process. So a few months back, I spent quite some time in Manacan, in Beaver County, meeting with several members of the public, with community leaders, with community organizations, and we identified a steering committee. That steering committee came together and designed what we call the protocol, but it's pretty much the process on how community groups will be able to apply for funding. And the steering committee imposed a couple of rules. Based on the COA, as you guys know already, only 3 kind of projects will be funded. Projects that benefit the environment, projects that benefit the quality of life, and projects to benefit the health of the affected communities. Those are really broad, obviously, components, but only those 3 kinds of permits will be accepted. The steering committee at the same time decided that we wanted to keep the funding as much as we could in Beaver County. So every single project has to take place in Beaver County. We will not authorize any project that is implemented outside of Beaver County. On top of that, we discussed, after having several meetings and having a public meeting, who could apply for funding. And the decision was made that only community-based organizations, nonprofits, 501c3s based in Beaver County could apply for that funding. The question was presented that what about those groups who are based outside of Beaver County but are very, very invested and I have done a lot of work in the county before. So in order not to exclude some of those groups, the provision was taken that outside groups can apply for funding only if they partner with a group based in Beaver County. So we want to make sure that we're developing capacity for the local community groups in the county. So that's how the decision was made. The process to apply, the review of the projects will be done by a new advisory board that was announced a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago, I mean. It's a smaller group that we decided to bring 4 individuals that serve at the steering committee to stay on and help us with the expertise, with the institutional knowledge that they develop to serve in the advisory board. And we recruited 4 new members of that of the community to serve. I would say that potentially was one of the few single changes that we made from the beginning of the process to now. Originally, we wanted to have a total independent advisory board from the steering committee. We wanted to have that separation of powers, if you want to call it that way. But the idea was to allow members of the advisory board, of the steering committee that helped design the process then to be able to apply for funding if they wanted. At the same time, we wanted to avoid that conflict of interest. We wanted to avoid someone in the advisory board deciding which projects to be funded and applying for funding at the same time. So the 4 members of the steering committee that transition into the advisory board committed that their organizations are not going to seek funding from the board. So that was a disclaimer that we wanted to have from them in order to serve. And the new 4 members as well, they have committed that their organizations, they are not going to be applying for funding. So we wanted to be very, very clear that there's no direct conflict of interest on the 8 people serving on the board. Just like with the steering committee, there's only 1 member of DEP that served the steering committee and is serving with advisory board. That's me. My job is to facilitate the process, to bring together the members, to pretty much do all of the back end work to make sure that we're not asking too much of our volunteer members of the advisory committee. And my role is to facilitate, and only if there's a tie for whatever reason, then I will be able to vote. So DP doesn't have a vote unless there's a specific tie from the advisory board. I know that this is different. I know that now we're talking about funding, but I'm happy to share with you that during the whole process of designing this project, we never faced a tie within the steering committee. I think that only one time one member voted against one decision. Other than that, we have unanimous votes all the time. But the most important point was the protocol, the actual rules, were voted unanimously from the 16 members of the advisory board and myself. So I'm hoping that we can continue the same trend, and that we can build consensus with these leaders. With that said, where we are right now is that we are on what I like to call the second stage of the project. Now we are receiving applications. The application window is open until February 29, and we are going through what we call a public engagement process. In an informal way, I open office hours every Tuesday from 11 to 1. There's a Teams link on our website, and again, we can circulate later again today, where any member of the public, any potential applicant, anyone can just call in, join, and myself, a few members of the advisory board will be there to answer questions in an informal capacity. Before getting there, I skipped one important step. The other step that we wanted to take was to make the process as easy as we can for the groups applying. So instead of trying to create our own process, instead of trying to create our own application and our own platform, we partnered with the Beaver Foundation. And Kelly, thank you again for your support and for your work. The Beaver Foundation is serving as the trustee for the fund. And we are using their application and their platform or the website for applicants to go there and apply. The Beaver Foundation has assigned staff to help us go through this process, not only to help the advisory board, but actually to provide technical assistance if needed to these groups to go through the process. And in most of the cases, a member of Kelly's team of the Beaver Foundation will be present in every single meeting that we're doing with public engagement. So if there's any process question in terms of the application itself, they are going to be present to help us, walk through the process. Coming back to the public engagement piece, we wanted to do, in addition to the informal office hours, we're doing 3 community meetings. We hosted the first one last week. It was virtual. It was the very first time that we did it in this process, but also we understand the importance of communicating with you guys face to face. So this is the first public meeting that we're hosting in person. If there are any other questions, we're coming back in 2 weeks on January 31st in this same location to have another public meeting that pretty much will go exactly the same as this one. Background, intros, why we're here, what are we trying to do. On top of that, we recognize that potential applicants may want to ask questions in a more private way, may want to have more, again, process questions. So we're going to host 2 Q&A sessions just for potential applicants. Those will be online on Teams, and potential applicants can register online to register to each of those Q&A sessions, and we're going to be able to provide those. I'm blanking on the dates. I'll get back to you in a little bit. One is next week. The second one will be the second week of February. So still with plenty of time before the deadline, so folks can apply for the funding. Once the application window is closed on February 29, the advisory board has 45 days to review all of the applications. We have a little bit of flexibility on how quick we're going to turn it around and start deciding on projects. We didn't want to impose a strong deadline on us because, again, we want to be very open but understanding of the personal commitments that every member of the advisory board has. But we have the commitment that we're going to try to solve to choose projects, as soon as we can. There will be occasions, even today, we went through that already, where you may have questions and we don't have answers. There are specific things that I don't want to force the advisory board to come up with an answer before talking among ourselves. So we're in the process of scheduling a meeting so we can start, deciding some of the things that we want the process to look like and that. So with that said, unless I'm missing something, guys, no? Thank you again for being here. Happy to answer as many questions as you guys may have. And Amelia, I don't know if you can help us passing the mic around or someone else can help. Yeah. Do you mind if I grab coffee, by the way, while you guys figure out?
Is this thing on?
Yep. Okay. Can I get a show of hands for people who are, this is the first time you've been on the campus? Is this the first time you've been on this campus? Oh, no, good. But many of you.
Please, thank you for waiting.
Do we just go on the Pittsburgh Foundation website to apply? There's a way to apply on that?
Yes, there's a specific website, there's a specific link that we can
Okay.
provide later today. And if you register to attend this meeting at the front desk with your email, we can send you an email with the link directly. But yeah,
Okay.
there's a website, a dedicated landing page for the project.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Lauren. Everybody hear me? Some of us are not professional writers. Hopefully the advisory committee will take it under advisement. Hopefully no misspelled words come out of my my mouth, but we're not professional writers, some of the organizations, and probably don't have the money to get professional writer to do an application. So just wanted to make that comment very clear. Three things, the environmental health, public health, what was the third one?
Projects to benefit, projects to improve the health, the environment, or the quality of life.
Okay, quality of life. I think I can do all three of those, is that okay?
Yeah, you're going to be able to present your project and to elaborate there.
Okay.
The application is very clear and easy to understand. If you have questions, the Beaver Foundation will have technical support staff available for you guys to go through the process. Just want to be very clear, the advisory board or the Beaver Foundation will not help you write the application, right? But there will be staff available to answer questions of the process and help you navigate through the website.
And I haven't been on the foundation's site yet, but there's enough room for verbiage in the application.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
of course.
Thank you.
Is on the funding cycle, does it have to be in 2024 or it can extend into 2025?
So we didn't impose a funding cycle per se. So if we get enough projects that justify to be funded and the whole amount of money is used this time around, we're going to do it. Right? Excuse me. Now, at the same time, I'm not sure if we're going to get to that point. So let's say that we get enough projects to that worth to be funded, and we don't use all of the funding. Then a second cycle will be open. Potentially, we're going to move into calendar year. So yeah, the first cycle will be 2024. The second cycle will be 2025. But at the same time, I don't want to commit, and we don't want to commit to say that there will be funding available next year, because if we receive this time around enough projects that are worth it and that should be funded, we're going to use the funding.
The projects could extend into 2025?
Yes,
or
the project could extend to 2025. The application and the requirements call for you guys to present a timeline and benchmarks. So you can divide your project in, we're planning on doing X, Y, and Z in 2024, then the rest of the elements in next year.
Thank you.
Cool.
Hands? Anybody? Questions? This is going to slow down real fast if nobody else has anything else to ask.
In regards to the funding, so are you going to be providing any feedback on applicants who have an idea of a project that meets the criteria, has interest and benefit for Beaver County, but potentially you don't have enough funding to fund the whole thing, right? So, as an applicant, you don't know, is going to be 5 applicants or 10 applicants or 1,000 applicants, out of that pool of money. Is there going to be a conversation, feedback to indicate, say, this is a valid project, we're interested, but we can't award the total amount, therefore we can award, a smaller amount or, a certain amount. Is there going to be that feedback, or projects that exceed the available funding going to be rejected just in that merit?
That is one of the questions that the full advisory board will talk about and come up with a final recommendation. I wouldn't like to misguide you right now with a potential solution, because we haven't discussed it yet. But we will have that information available before the application is over, of course.
Questions?
If we were interested in finding other partners to work with, is there any way, I guess there's really no letter of intent where we could get a list of potential people that might put in requests for funding, or is there a bulletin board or chat room or anything you can do to help? Even an email, an attendance list from tonight would be helpful maybe. Can you do anything to help us with that?
To identify potential partners, no. It's going to be really, really time consuming for the advisory board to do it. To share, obviously, sign-in sheets and lists. If everyone in the room consents, yeah, I don't have any problem to share that. But there's plenty of Beaver County knowledge in this room, both in the advisory room and in the public, that you should be able to have those conversations even with the people right now in the room. I just want to clarify that, once again, unless the advisory boards feel different, that I don't see that being as a responsibility for the advisory board, because we will be very, very busy reviewing the applications. But the process just started, so by asking that question, by attending to the next public events, you're going to be able to get to know interested parties that you could potentially partner. But I think that and this is Fernando speaking on behalf of DEP, please note the advisory board. I wouldn't like to, for DEP at least, or for myself, to start recommending potential partnerships, because then we open the door for potential conflict of interest or for accusations that DEP is trying to favor someone over the other one. So we have been able to design this process that is, again, community driven. And if in an individual capacity, members of the advisory board and the public can share information, I think that that's perfectly fine. I just wouldn't like to see DEP, or again, without consulting with them, but even the advisory board having a formal recommendation, because then we could be accused of favoring one potential applicant versus another one. So.
Can you all hear me? So,
You want to come to the front?
yeah, you should go sit
Just
there.
grab a chair.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Urenker from the Pittsburgh Foundation. So I would also say the Pittsburgh Foundation doesn't have the role of helping you find partners. However, we can help you find resources to start looking for partners. There's an organization called the Forbes Funds, where I can share information that has all of the nonprofits in your area and actually in the 7-county area. There is a site called pittsburghgives.org that we run, that there are quite a few nonprofits on there in the 7-county region as well. So if you need a place to start, I agree with Fernando, you can start in this room. But if you need a place to start where you can go look for an organization and see if the mission that they have aligns with the project that you want to do, and then perhaps contact them. So after this, I will grab someone's email, or you can grab mine, and you can follow up with me, and I can get you to those resources.
Hello, my name is Patty Hodawanage, and about 5 years ago, I opened a foundation on behalf of my daughter, Nicolina Hodawanage. And Beaver County has been superb to us and funded a program called Parent Peer Support Partner. And what they have helped me develop is we're training skilled family members that have already experienced in their life the mental health industry. And we go out and we support the family who is actively being involved in it. Meaning that we are not in place of any Beaver County service. There's oodles of services in our county that no one knows about. But what we try to do is make the parent understand what their child is going through. In this experience, we have found that we need family community activities together on a one-on-one, and I have been blessed to have a son who owns a marina, River Harbor Marina, and he has donated certain spots and stuff for me to get families together to go down there for projects. But it's gotten to the point that he is so busy and he's very limited on his spot, so I'm trying to get other spots to do that with. Is part of renting being involved in this? Like if I rented, you have to have availability of the shoreline, and you have to have riparian rights to be able to have dock on it and all this other stuff. And I do understand how to do that and what we're doing, but I'm kind of wondering, it's a lot of work to get this together and build a structure and so forth. Is that within the grasp of what you're talking about? Like, this isn't like a day or two, this is like a week, 40, 50 hours getting all this together. Is that what you would consider to be, even though whenever we say I'm enhancing the life, yes, but it is the mental health that would qualify that we would want. We wouldn't open this to everybody, because then people that do this for a living wouldn't make any money, because they'd all come to the nonprofit to get that done. Do you follow what I'm asking?
Of course, and if any member of the board wants to jump in, please let me know. For now, I can tell you that the advisory board will not be, informing or saying yes, you should apply or you shouldn't apply, because that would be unfair for applicants, for other applicants. What I can tell you from my personal perspective is, and the idea of developing this process in a very broad way, is that if you make a strong case, if you're based in Beaver County and you make a strong case that your project improves quality of life, for example, then you would be able to apply. But I wouldn't like the advisory board to start providing feedback right now on what what kind of expenses are going to be covered without even knowing if you qualify, if you apply or not. But if you present a strong case that your project and you could improve the quality of life of people in Beaver County that have been affected by the Shell plant and are affected, then apply, right? I don't know if anyone wants to.
Now you all can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever had any specific conversation around precluded expenditures. I mean, I think Fernando's framing of his answer is what we've talked about consistently. Who's making the best case in the whole for resources that they can deploy in service to their specific project? And so, you know, I think consistent with that, what Fernando didn't say, but I think would be comfortable saying, is if you make an argument that clearly demonstrates that you need rent to pull that forward, I don't think there's any reason why rent per se would be any sort of excluded
I didn't know if
expenditure.
we had to own, if the foundation had to own the specific area or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? That this would be done on?
There are no limitations on that. There are absolutely no limitations on that aspect.
So the only limitation is that you have to be a public 501c3
Correct.
or partnering with a 501c3. So what you're asking for are operating support, operating expenses. You can ask for that as a project. Doesn't matter if you own the building, doesn't matter what you're doing, but it's part of your mission. You make the case that that is quality
I
of
just
life.
didn't know if it was on ownership. That was my question. No ownership.
I wanted to affirm that yes, applying for grants is a lot of work, and I would share the hopeful sentiment that it's almost like coming up with a business plan, and then you have that business plan, and you have this amazing resource to ask for further grants down the road. And so it is like building a foundation that you can then reap the benefits of down the road too. So I would encourage you. I know grants are really hard work. Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that they would pull out, she doesn't know that property, said no. Yeah.
That specific issue.
Okay.
Hi, that's really good information on finding a partner. So we're also looking for a local partner. 2 questions. Can you give any guidance on the size or the range of individual grants? And also, do you think that a project that increases local tourism would fall under the category of benefiting quality of life in the county?
So to your first question, the steering committee decided not to provide any guidance in terms of size of grant. We have several conversations about it, and the main reason was that we didn't want to limit anyone to potentially apply. There will be, I'm expecting, I believe that there will be, some projects that will be way bigger than others because they will be very technical and more specific. But by not imposing any specific size, we're not limiting any kind of potential projects, to be honest. So there are no guidance because there are no limits to that. To the second point, once again, if you believe that is a strong case and that improves the quality of life, it will be up to the advisory board to review. And to review that, I wouldn't like to, once again, to say right now no, because we don't have any other details about the project, and we haven't we haven't even started the review process. So I would encourage you to apply if you believe that you can make a strong case that that the specific project that you want improves quality of life.
Thank you.
Can you clarify any, because I didn't see this in the implementation plan, on any limitations of entities and multi-partnerships? So submitting multiple applications with partnership of different 501c3s. Does that make sense?
It does. We don't have a strong language about it, but there's a couple of provisions there specifically that if there's a CBO or an entity that applies for 2, 3, or 4 grants, we're going to consider the first one, and then obviously depending on the nature of the projects, of the subsequent projects, and if there's another project another group that is applying only for one, and that it's exactly the same project or very similar, we haven't decided that. That's going to be part of the conversation with the advisory board, but the provision exists that is to try to be responsive to and support as many groups as we can. So it would be, from my perspective, again, the advisory board hasn't met to discuss that, but from my perspective, it would be unfair to award 3 or 4 projects to one specific group versus other groups that are only applying for one. Now, if the project is way better and qualifies better and the advisory board decides that fits better with the intention of this project, then yeah. But I wouldn't like to make more general comments about it until the advisory board meets. So.
Hi, my name is Joanne Martin, and I'm with Reimagine Beaver County. And I wanted to just say a little bit more about your question, and it might answer some questions to all of you, and then Kelly can step in. Related to, does it fit quality of life or health or environment? I today, for the first time, read through the 9-page application, and yes, putting together a business plan is daunting. But if you do go through the application, I think it will help guide you through that thought process of, how do I respond to this question about health, quality of life, and how does it apply? So not to say don't ask your questions tonight, but that application does have a way of guiding you through in some sense. Do you want to add anything to that?
So the application is online. You go to the site and register your nonprofit organization or your partner nonprofit organization, and you complete the application online. You can save and go away and come back. Typically, a potential grantee, it's typically a 2-hour application if you sat down and did it from start to finish. There are 3 narrative sections that have some word limits, but Joanne is correct. It guides you through the process of, does it apply for this purpose? Do you have the support to complete the process? What your budget may be? I'm just going to say a good grant application, if anyone's interested, is you say who you are, what you're asking for, how it relates to the grant, so environmental, health, or quality of life, how you think you're going to accomplish your project, and what you think your potential outcomes are. Generally, when you're writing or completing, if you can answer those 5 questions, that is a good grant application. You're not missing anything. You're giving enough information that the advisory committee can review, make a judgment. If they have specific follow-up questions, we can reach back out to you. But that guides you through the process, right? So other than the limits at the start, public 501c, you have a partner, it has to be in these 3 areas, you can't do lobbying. The application should make itself pretty clear as you go through. And if you do run into hurdles, you can contact us. We can't write it for you, tell you how to do it, but we can, this is a budget. This is a site you might want to go to see how budgets are filled out. There are some financial requirements as well that you have to say, we will find your 990 or your financial statements. So pretty self-explanatory, but if you haven't done this before, it is hard and complex. We'll try to help you through with the technical side. Is that helpful?
Who's next? And then.
Thank you. I'll be quick. On the application, do you fill it out as the 501, or as, if you're partnering with them, do you fill it out as the project organization?
If I'm not mistaken, I think that the protocol calls for the main applicant to be the organization based in Beaver County, so the local organization. But let me get back to you with that. But I think that was the language, if I'm not mistaken. So. Yes, yeah, we are not going to be answering questions to the individual applicants within a project. We're answering to the project as a whole. So yeah. Right here in front.
Could you talk a little bit about the mechanics of this? I think you said the application window is through the end of February. You have 45 days to pick the ones you're going to fund. Do the winners then get their check immediately, or do they have to spend the money and get reimbursed?
So the advisory board still meeting to decide some of those elements. Just to clarify, the 45 days is to review the applications, not to decide to make final decisions. What I can tell you for now is that once the advisory board makes a final selection and notifies the Beaver Foundation about the organization, let's say one specific project. This is the third time, Kelly, I'm sorry. We have up to 2 business weeks, or how many days for you guys? 14 business days for the Beaver Foundation to turn around and give you the money. The money will be given in advance, right? We're not asking for people to spend the money and then get reimbursed, with the only caveat that depending on the length and the complexity of the project, the advisory board may decide to award the fund based on your timeline and your benchmarks. So someone was asking before, what about if the project lasts 2 or 3 years? So depending on that complexity, we may decide we're going to fund first the first year and then continue, but the grant will be given for the whole project.
Okay, but by the time we get the check, the year's almost half over. I guess it could be May. Or...
Yes, that's the reality. We're expecting to finalize the review of the projects by mid-April. We're going to do everything we can to have a busy April and May to make the final decisions and then notify the Beaver Foundation as fast as we can. But yeah, I wouldn't like to give you a specific timeline right now because we still need to talk about it. So.
But the first year might be May 24 to May 25 or something like that.
Probably.
It doesn't have to be over. We're not to spend all the money by December 31st, 24.
Correct.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify, if you don't have an existing 501c, but you have a business plan for a project and you plan on partnering with somebody, should you still submit it now? And then if somebody is willing to partner within the timeline?
No, the application has to come through with a final partnership.
Okay, understood.
But, yeah.
Thanks.
My organization's been saving money to do these projects for a while. Matching funds will be considered. I'd only ask for what we need, but
I don't know if we would define it as matching funding. I would say present your proposal, and again, if the advisory board recommends funding, we will fund it. If internally you want to see that as matching funds or not, would be different. But I wouldn't like to just define it as matching projects. I don't know what you would.
most of the time with DEP grants, there was an inspection of some kind afterwards, and certifications that it was finished as per plans and that type of thing. Does that happen now?
So
how do you prove somebody did the project?
So I know that you didn't say that, but just to clarify, this is not a DEP grant, right? I'm going to ask Kelly to jump in here in 1 second. Just as a reminder, and this is great, I know that in general terms, we're talking about grants and we're talking about the role of DEP. This is an informal advisory board where the only contribution that DEP has is my time and Amelia's time. Other than that, we're facilitating the process, but every decision will be made by community members in Beaver County. With that said, we need to remember where this funding is coming from, right? I want to acknowledge first that Shell has been an amazing partner for us to develop this, because they literally told us, Fernando, the money's there, you guys do whatever you guys want to do, right? With that said, we need to remember that this is not a philanthropy donation from Shell to the Pittsburgh Foundation. This is a fund that was created specifically because there were violations. So even when sometimes we call it a grant and we call it in general terms, this is the first time that we do something like this. So we're gonna use the Pittsburgh Foundation's experience, we're gonna use the members of the advisory board experience, DP's experience, but we're doing something totally new. And one of the requirements that was implemented in the protocol is that every project and all of the publicity for the projects will have to include a disclaimer, right? That the funding is coming not from a grant from the Beaver Foundation, but it's coming from a legal agreement where violations were accepted. So I want to make sure that we don't confuse this as anything that DP has done before, or just as another grant that a foundation is doing. This is a very sui generis project that sometimes we speak just in general terms, but it's very unique. So, but coming back to your question in terms of benchmarks and reviews, Kelly, if you don't mind.
Okay, so if an organization or partnership is awarded a grant, typically the funding period is for 1 year. So you're awarded X amount of money for 1 year to complete your project. At the end of that year, you will be required to have a follow-up report that comes to us, and then we share it with the advisory committee. So if there are milestones in the application that are to be met, part of that follow-up report is that you talk about those milestones, and it comes back to us, we send it to the advisory committee. If it is a 2-year grant, or further out because it's a complex project, it is likely there's a report at the end of the year, and then the second payment will be released after that report is received and reviewed. And so that is how we keep on track with that grant. We are also open during the first year if a grantee, someone who's been awarded the money, has a hiccup of some sort, because there are external forces, there might be delays, personnel might change, the roof might cave in. Right, it might not get a permit, and so please know that if you are in that situation, reach out to us so that we know that there would be a delay in the project, right? You've already received the money, we still think you're gonna complete the project, but we would inform the advisory committee, hey, there's a hiccup, there's no permit, the roof caved in, so they're gonna need a little bit longer time to do this. But you should expect, if you receive an award at the end of that year, that you will have a follow-up report to complete.
Any other questions? I'm not driving back to Harrisburg until tomorrow morning, so like, please.
Hi there. I just actually wanted to touch on a question just previously asked about if there's projects that residents or businesses that are definitely fall within the guidelines of what you've described. Again, this is a penalty fund from Shell, so going back into the community to assist with community members who have been directly affected by the plant. Are there leaders in the room today that would be able to connect with those residents or businesses so that that partnership can happen, so that an application can happen? Is that something that the advisory board would be willing to provide guidance to? I'm sorry if this question's already been asked to in a previous meeting.
It has, the Pittsburgh Foundation will be able to help identify resources of potential partners. As soon as the meeting is over, right, this meeting, everyone stays here in a personal capacity and can talk about many things. I just wouldn't like the advisory board to have a formal role advising on that to avoid potential, conflict of interest and issues like that. So.
Absolutely. And if I can just follow up, the question is for the DEP. You've mentioned that this is the first time a fine like this has been levied against a corporation or against Shell, that this process is unique in the sense that it is an initial step. Are there plans for the DEP to continue with this process, with other corporate polluters, or perhaps with Shell again, because we know that they're still in violation? Go ahead.
So just to clarify, this is not the first time that DEP imposes a fine like this. This is the first time that DEP proposes and recommends a community fund created as part of an agreement signed with a company that is in violation. The commitment from the administration from day one, it was to, use you guys as guinea pigs, to use Beaver County to develop a new model that is community driven. And if it continues to be successful as it has been already, yes, the commitment is to continue using this model when it's applicable. There are a couple of legal agreements or COAs that are being negotiated right now that may include some of the other stuff, not only in Beaver County, but in other parts of the Commonwealth. Maybe the specific model that we developed for this case is not going to apply exactly similar, but we're going to continue to use best practices and the specific concept that if we're including a community fund, it should be community driven. And that is a commitment from the DEP and for Governor Shapiro. Again, we may not be able to do it every single time, but I believe that we have come up with a very transparent process. A little bit slow. I would like it to move a little bit faster, but we're learning. But the idea is if we continue to provide and to generate these kind of responses and this kind of success, this kind of feedback from the community, yes, we will continue to do so. And the point with Shell, again, I'm not an expert. I'm not part of the programs component of DEP, so I really don't know about violations versus no violations. What I can tell you is that the COA signed with Shell is very clear to say that this fine and this community fund is because of the violations that took place to date. So the COA specifically says that if there's new violations that warrant more fines, they could be applied. So, yeah.
Two questions. So going back to the program duration, so some of these programs, if they're complex in nature, it may take multiple years, right? And some that if you don't want to be a flash in the pan, you want to make environmental or health impact, it has to be a long-term project. So going back to, if you propose a project that, let's say, has a lifespan of 5, 10, 15 years, it may take a year or two for implementation. The application from the Pittsburgh Foundation, the consideration is in regards to when the proposed project go live, not the duration of its capability, impact to the environment, health, and benefit of life. Can you clarify on that?
So the advisory board will review complete projects, right? So if your project takes 10 years, you have to be very clear to present your benchmarks, your timeline, and everything in the application. Now, let's be honest, right? $5 million is not a lot of money. So a project that may last 10 years potentially is going to be very, very expensive. So again, I wouldn't like to tell you apply or do not apply, but you will need to present a very, very strong case for a project that lasts 10 years. Could be considered, not could be considered, but could be awarded. Those are decisions that we haven't made. Again, the advisory board will review each project individually, but this is something that you need to present the complete project, right?
Okay. And the second question is just to confirm. I believe educational institutions in Beaver County are allowed to apply. Okay.
Yes. So public 501c3s, faith-based organizations, some government organizations like fire stations can apply. So yes, educational institutions can apply.
Does every entity utilize funds in the environment? Just the environment.
So Dan asked, does every entity applying need to be a 501c3? The partnership can include non-501c3s, the partnership, but the lead who has applied, these are charitable funds, has to be the 501c3. So you're going with their employment number, right? You're going with their status, so you are partnering with them, but you could have a multiple partnership with non-501s, 501s, faith-based organizations, educational institutions.
I just wanted to tack on something, not that Fernando's response wasn't adequate, but a 10-year project, I can just envision that something that works with the environment or health and monitoring health data or statistics could become very protracted and require a timeline. So as Fernando said, make the case, but when we're talking about the environment and you're doing testing, you don't get an answer back next month necessarily. You need several years to look at data, and even Anna could speak to that, from her work. So some projects, yeah, they could be pretty complex in time frame if we're talking about health and environmental data.
So maybe a recommendation for you guys as you evaluate these applications. Maybe make a criteria distinction between the benefit to the community over a span period, right? Like you mentioned, if it's a water testing, environmental testing, these things you don't want it to be a flash in the pan, as I call it. You want something that's durable and has long-term viability, but make it important that there is a stake in the sand within a reasonable timeline that the project is live, right, operational. So that it's not a long-wounded project that, 5-10 years from now, everybody forgets about it and it doesn't get implemented, right? So there's a distinction between the durability and duration and impact to the region over a period of time. It could be a short project or it could be a long project if it's really transformational, but make the criteria as far as the validity of the project to ensure that it is actually completed in a reasonable time frame so you can be measured and reported upon.
Fernando, would you just explain one specific project that must be funded?
Sure. So before getting to that, the criteria has been already established by the steering committee. We cannot change the criteria. However, there's many things, including your advice, that we can take into consideration when we're comparing one project over the other. And once again, the reasoning behind being so flexible and maybe not having a lot of guidance for you guys is that we decided, we did it intentionally so we could take into consideration as many projects as we could. The idea of being flexible with some of this guidance is that we didn't want to limit anyone to potentially be able to apply. We wanted to be inclusive. Now, the COA calls specifically, and again, we didn't have an option here, although I would say that a lot of us agree that it should be included. The actual legal agreement includes that at least one project should be to monitor the quality of air around the facility. So this is something that for sure we will be funding, not because we believe that it's important, but because it's actually part of the legal agreement that is included. At the same time, the steering committee, to provide a balance of the importance versus environment, health, but also the general quality of life, the steering committee decided to also make mandatory that we fund one project that actually brings and provides a general benefit to the quality of life with long-standing implications. So,
I want to make clear that what I'm about to say is my reaction, and I'm not speaking for the whole committee. However, I'm hopeful that what I'm about to say will be useful, even so. Vinny, I'm particularly interested in seeing projects that do demonstrate a long-term benefit for the region, and we have had internal conversations as a committee about a desire in that regard. However, as we're evaluating these applications, I think it's important to remember that what we're most fundamentally evaluating is your plan to utilize the resources that you're asking for in the time horizon that you're asking for them. So if you're going to go after $200,000 for a 18-month pilot to stand up a program that intends to persist in perpetuity. I think this committee, I want to hear, I don't know what the committee wants, I want to hear about the long-term time horizon and the potential generational impact in Beaver County for health, quality of life, and environment. But I really am going to hone in on what are you doing with those dollars in the 18-month time horizon that you're asking for them. And so I think any good grant holds both, you know, the future benefit and the present opportunity in tension with one another, and that's the challenge of the writing.
And just to complement that, one of the elements of the criteria that the steering committee decided to incorporate in the implementation plan is that we're asking the applicants what's the long-lasting impact beyond the money itself, and even if the money is going to be spent in 1 year, what's the long-lasting impact that you're planning to bring to Beaver County? So.
I keep thinking about your comment about making sure that we understand that not everybody is a great writer. And I think so many of us have fear of writing, and I wanted to encourage you all to just focus on clarity, right? Just say what you mean, and try not to get bound up in making it sound good, right? But that just be clear, because we just want to understand what you're trying to do. And so how you say that, the clarity is what's the most important thing.
Can the main applicant be, for example, a business that uses a 501c3 as a fiscal sponsor?
The main applicant has to be the 501c3. Right now, we have a question from one of the past meetings that the advisory board will be discussing in the next couple of days. If the main applicant, meaning the 501c3, is based outside of Beaver County, but the private company or the private entity is the one based in Beaver in the county. So we have to decide that as an advisory board. We haven't decided yet. But this direct answer to your question is the main applicant has to be the 501c3.
Thank you.
I think everyone is really interested in having the informal chat after the meeting.
I'll be quick then. Just a question regarding resident feedback. So say there's a specific project or an applicant or somebody who's interested in doing something when it comes to applying for these funds. Is the advisory board interested in hearing from residents who perhaps would support that application or support that project? Or are you looking to just sort of make the decision? Obviously, you don't want to open up a can of worms, but if there's people who are specifically, tuned into this and are looking to say, yes, this is something that, I as an impacted resident support, is there a process for us to provide that feedback, or?
There is through the application process. One of the elements that we will consider to be scored is the public support. So we are asking the applicant to share with us how is the applicant planning to be transparent and to communicate with the public, right? How what level of public input the applicant is opening to receive support. But through the application process, you can attach letters of support. Could be from individuals, could be from partner organizations. So we will be taking those into consideration as well as part of your application. So it's not a separate process, but as part of your application, you can answer the online questions, but then attach any kind of support material that you need to support that attach. Do we have any questions on Facebook?
That's a good question. Where did Fernando get his jacket?
Many years ago.
There are no questions on Facebook.
Okay, thank you. Are you sure?
Thank you for having the meeting tonight.
No, I appreciate. Obviously, I will give the members of the advisory board and Kelly an opportunity to provide closing remarks if they want to. I just want to thank all of you for being here, and those who are watching on Facebook for not only your support but the pressure that you're putting on this process, because this is what forces change. But at the same time, for your patience, because this is a new process. This is a new process. This is something that, when you see it as only as a grant, right, it's not something new. When you see this as a fine to a violator, it's not something new. But this is something new that DEP is doing to really listen to the community and to have a community-driven process. So thank you for your patience, because we're learning, and we're expecting that we're going to identify mistakes, we're going to identify potential things to improve. And if we have a second round with this funding, then we will be able to improve that. If the funding is done and then we get to implement a community fund for a different company in a different location, we will be using the experiences that we are learning with Beaver County. So thank you for your patience and for understanding that sometimes trying to change how things work and doing something new, it's not easy. So once again, thank you for your patience and for being here. Anyone wants to provide closing remarks? Okay, thank you everyone.